Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a special joint meeting of the Chatham Select Board and Council of Aging Board of Directors for March 18th, 2024. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on a smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chair. Seeing none. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 20 until March 31st, 2025. This meeting of the Chatham Select Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceeding as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to the meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, conference ID 203-386-491#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, which is now Xfinity Channel 8 and 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. First action of the evening is to establish quorum on our side. Select Board Member DeCastro.
Present.
Select Board Member Davis.
Present.
Select Board Member Dykens.
Present.
Select Board Member Shell.
Present.
And Select Board Member Matters is present. I will now turn it over to Patty Burke, do a roll call of their board.
Betty? Present.
You need to turn your
Microphone's on.
Say, I'm sorry. Present. Thank you, Betty. Joan Bagnell.
Present.
Laura Everett.
Present.
Nancy Fields.
Present on Teams.
Stan Mansfield.
Present.
Oh, thank you, Stan. And the chair is present, Pat Burke. Thank you, Corey, for inviting us.
Wonderful. Everyone's here. Thank you for a wonderful audience here tonight, at least in-house. We have some participation here, which is very nice. Basically, just want to just make a quick comment. We kind of made this, the feasibility study on 193 came before our desk a couple weeks ago, and we made the very conscious decision that this should be brought before the public. Just have an open discussion before we close the warrant. We're not expecting to take any formal votes tonight. We'll have a presentation in a moment, but I also want to note that just for the mechanics of this. So on tomorrow night's select board agenda, we also have an item on our agenda for this particular topic. My hopes is at the end of tonight's discussion and presentation, I'll have a better sense of where we might be going with this project and if it's feasible to keep that agenda on tomorrow night, or it may be worthwhile, depending on the outcome of tonight, to get a sense of the board maybe that needs to be postponed to a later date. So that is a placeholder at the moment, but I'm hoping at the end of tonight I'll get a better sense of where the board wants to go. As I mentioned, there's no formal votes being expected tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Terry Whalen to do some introductions, please.
Thank you. My name is Terry Whalen, Principal Projects and Operations Administrator. And for tonight's topic, we did have a staff report and a meeting package with some of the slides to go over the preliminary evaluation, as the chair just referenced. And I want to introduce Kurt Raber. I'm going to turn it over to Kurt pretty quickly here. Kurt's the principal at Catalyst Architects, Architecture and Interiors, and he's going to run through some scenarios we looked at we were following up on board action from late last fall, and he's been on site, and I think we'll have some interesting things to share about what he's learned. And just for some context, Kurt's firm in a previous incarnation had actually done the work on the building, the study back in 2011. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kurt, and like I said, he's going to run through the slides and the budget. And I don't know if you wanted to run through each option individually, or you want him to run through the full gamut, but I think Kurt could do either one.
Go through the process. If there's any questions, we can interrupt. And of course, once we get through the presentation, I'm going to allow for public comment also. So we got plenty of time. So
I think I might exception run through. Great.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. As Terry mentioned, I'm Kurt Raber, and I'm an architect at Catalyst Architecture and Interiors in Yarmouthport. And previously, our firm was named Brown, Linkos, Finuccio, and Raber, but we got a couple more partners, and we just couldn't keep adding names. So we're renamed as Catalyst. We had the good fortune to work for the town back in 2011, and we studied ways to improve the current Council on Aging building. And of course, I'm very aware of the other efforts the town has put into design and potential building and town meeting efforts and so forth with another site for the Council on Aging building, a new Council on Aging building. However, we picked up the phone a couple of weeks ago, and Terry said we want to go back and look at the old building, talk about some of the things that you identified in your report in 2011, look at the site plan and other things that we identified as issues, not so much problems, but sort of building issues and building maintenance, deferred maintenance that needed to be addressed. So would you come back and sort of re-examine the study of the Center for Active Living and talk about what the building still needs. So with that, we visited the site a couple times, took some pictures. We went through our old report, noted that some of the things that we noted then were still issues, still missing, or still needed to be attended to. Some of those things are some structural improvements, and the town's gone through a design and has a design ready to do some structural repairs to a foundation where there's some settlement and some cracking. The town's also been working with Mass Save and Rise Engineering to look at a complete renovation of the building's HVAC system, which is, it's time. The opportunity to electrify the building, go to heat pump technology, bring in fresh air, ERV systems is really, new state-of-the-art technology, plus the grant dollars and rebates from the state and the Mass Save program, tremendously advantageous to the town. So it's the perfect time to do that. And so some of those things, and even the parking shortage that still exists, could be addressed immediately. Doesn't have to wait for a bigger renovation project. So that's always an option. And then when we get to talking a little bit about the building plans and the budgets for that, we have general building items, and those are the things that just need to get done, whether there's an addition or not, or a renovation or not. Or we have also sort of option 1A, which is working within the existing building, stretching the roof line a little bit. Option 1B considers a renovation, an addition in front of the building, and a renovation of the office space. Option 2 considers an addition to the building for a senior day program, which would be at first floor level. So let's go through my plan diagrams. This page shows the existing conditions plan, which is still valid. We measured and drew this building very detailed manner back in 2011 and 12. So this plan is the lower level. It's walkout basement at the rear of the building, and that's at this door. This yellow portion here in the center is the existing stairwell that comes down from the main entrance lobby down into the lower level. The color coding here, I'll zoom in a little bit. This kind of talks to what we could do to make the building more usable as a center for active living, a couple days a week, and also as a potential location for the senior daycare program 2 days a week. So what we thought was, number one, there's a driveway and a parking lot on the left side of the building. It comes down a pretty steep slope, but if there were going to be a new entrance to the lower level directly, we'd like to add something here. Perhaps it's a covered porch. It doesn't have to be a fully enclosed heated vestibule, but it's just a way to get people that come by car or come by the shuttle bus, disembark and get under cover right away, get to this door, come in. The yellow block is a new welcome lobby. The red block is a new office for the Senior Day Program Director. This bright orange and here in the center. Number 4 is that stair right now. It was compliant when it was built, but when we start renovating this building, this stair has to become enclosed at this lower level. So this stair would be enclosed, rated doorways into it so that it's a proper egress up to the first floor and a means out. Number 5 is these green areas. Larger portions of the building, however, they're encumbered by steel lolly columns that break up those rooms and make them harder to use. So this plan considers that the X's, the red X's are columns that we'd like to remove. In some cases, we'd be pulling out a piece of steel and putting a bigger, better piece of steel in. In some cases, we'd be pulling out a 4-ply of 2x10 wood beam and replacing it with a steel beam. But this is sort of small surgical renovation projects that would make these rooms feel a lot bigger and be a lot more practical to use. Same thing at this lower left corner, be a multi-purpose room that could be used as an exercise room, but there's a column right in the middle of it. When we get upstairs, we're going to talk about the same thing. So those are, in the 2 6s here, if this floor is going to be used for public activity space, it really should have a men's and a women's restroom. We put those right adjacent to the current furnace room, which has the plumbing service and everything. So we have to cut the floor and add a lift station because all the sewerage leaves this building above the basement floor. So we would have to put in a small lift station for these bathrooms. Finally, 7 would be a kitchenette or a buffet kind of station where coffee, sink, refrigeration, where meals could be served or refreshments could be served from. So that's sort of how we expect we might renovate the lower level to make it a lot more usable, either for the CFAL or for the Senior Day program. Going up 1 story, this green block is the kind of the main multi-purpose room. Again, it's encumbered by a column that's dead center of the room, which makes it hard to lay out the tables. It's hard for people in the rear of the room to see the TV monitor. There's always somebody who's got a column in their way, like the old Boston Garden. And then there's another issue over here on the left side of the building. There's a ramp that goes up to the deck at the back of the building, but it's super steep. So even the able-bodied volunteers that work for Meals on Wheels, find that very difficult to go up and down, especially in inclement weather. So we'd like to rebuild that ramp at a much shallower pitch, and also perhaps at the time extend this deck. So in this is the lower level, and this slide here, along with the 3rd slide, which is the 2nd level, are all part of that option 1A. Up here on the 2nd level, we were asked to look at making the multi-purpose room larger, better. Right now when you go up there, it's light and it's bright, but the right half of the room is encumbered by the steep slope of the Cape-style roof. So when we walked through there, we said, well, couldn't we put a shed dormer on this side just like the other side? Similarly, we were asked to look at the conference room, which has a limited occupancy and limited headroom at the front wall. So we decided that if we're going to do the dormer at the conference room, let's also do it at this library office. Used to be a health screening room 10 years ago, but now it's the library office. So if we could do dormers there, or one big dormer, a lot more usable space, better daylight, and increased occupancy. The other thing we'd like to do is to build a covered roof over this fire stair. New building code requires that exterior egress stairs be covered to prevent the accumulation of ice and snow, and which is certainly, we want to remove any type of hazard we can here. So that's sort of an important element that we'd like to do in this option 1A. In the attic story, there's actually 2 units up there, but I just put this red rectangle here to indicate that all the HVAC for the second floor is up in the attic space. So Terry's been working, as I mentioned, with Mass Save and Rise Engineering and the Cape Light Compact. There's going to be some specifications coming forward to replace these units as well as the units in the basement with all new heat pumps. But while we're doing that, we would probably go up and do some weatherization, better insulation in the attic, maybe even insulate all the way up at the roof line so that the equipment that is in the attic and the ductwork in the attic is in a conditioned space. So these simple things are option 1A. Turning to option 1B, this is on the first floor now. The purple area, in order to make the multi-purpose room larger, we thought, couldn't we, in this area now that's sort of a kind of overgrown garden, an unused entrance, could we stretch the multi-purpose room out another 10 feet? Remove this wall, just like we did to remove the column and put a piece of steel here, we would be adding a good-sized piece of steel on this line if we take that wall out. But could we get this room, instead of have just 30 people, could we stretch it to be 40 or 45 people for dining, or maybe 60 in a lecture seating scenario, to make it the biggest room in the building? While we're adding space in the front of the building, we'd like to do an entry vestibule at the front door with a covered porch, and there'd be a small ramp area underneath that portico so that the arrival is back at the front of the building. Currently, if everyone's been over there lately, you know that the handicap access was improved at the rear of the building through this vestibule. And then from this old stair landing, there's now a sort of a new enclosed vestibule there and a steel ramp that goes down to the parking lot. It was put there because it's adjacent to the handicap parking. So it made the shortest accessible route to the building, but it's not really a permanent solution in my mind. The other half of this slide is the green area. If we were able to make the front entrance at the front door again, we would repurpose the current entrance as a rear vestibule, take away that old ramp, and this welcome lobby would be the kind of front to back center portion of the building. And then in the pink area here, we would take the current outreach office and the other programs office, move them into the suite of admin offices so that Leah and her 4 staff that are there, you know, day to day, would all be in sort of one central space that could be partitioned off. The other thing was that at the center of the plan would be this sort of new welcome desk or concierge style desk, hotel style desk, where there sort of be a gatekeeper, where the one person could see anybody come in from either entrance. And because I'm told that visitors are asked to sign in, and this way kind of we can see everything happening. So this is sort of a small addition and a big renovation as part of 1B. On the second floor in that 1B scenario, we thought about sort of shuffling up the layout upstairs. And right now, the library is a series of bookshelves and hallways that kind of meander through furniture. We'd like to centralize the library back into the center. And there still could be some meeting tables in the library space. But if we were to kind of move a couple of partitions up here, we could create a hall that gets to the enlarged conference room and then a second smaller meeting room there. So we might have a conference room that seats 14 to 16, another one that seats maybe 8 to 10. There could still be a meeting space in the library for those days when you have so many things going on. But small renovations, and this is part of the 1B scenario that we'll examine in the budgets in a moment. Entering into what we called option 2, the team said, well, what could we do? Could we look at an addition similar to the one your firm presented in 2011 and 12 out to, I believe that's the south side. And I said, sure, we could look at it. And so this addition scenario is a little bit different in configuration. The spaces are a little bit smaller, considering how many people might attend, or this building is designed for somewhere between 6 to 10 participants in the senior day program. And what we would do is where that steep slope parking lot on the left or south side of the building, we'd excavate there, put in a full basement. And then on the upper level or main level, we would have the senior day program. But because we have the benefit of the hill, in this basement area, we can break through the old foundation. We would have to relocate our HVAC equipment, but then we would be able to build a couple of spaces that are dedicated storage spaces that Leah's staff is moving around the building to, when it's in their way, they have to move it. And those are medical equipment storage, and that's sort of a lending storage where somebody might need a wheelchair or a walker or something like that. So those items would be stored right here. We'd have a door right out to the lower level, and we'd still have room to kind of go around the building. We also created an exercise storage equipment, because in the green block here, this large basement room underneath the senior day program could be another big active room that could be used 5 days a week, 6 days a week. And if that was structured without columns, this would be the perfect place to have those yoga or stretching or other activity programs. And that could live on this level. All the equipment could be stored here, but it wouldn't encumber the other meeting spaces upstairs. Sort of in the back of that basement, if you will, there'd be accessible restrooms. And we do those in the addition rather than pulling apart the old building and trying to get the plumbing underneath the old building. We do that all in the new addition. And then a new HVAC room, which would be dedicated to this level of the addition and the senior day program upstairs. So this slide, number 7, was considering what would a senior day program look like as an addition to the first floor. Zooming in again, an entrance vestibule. So we'd infill, or we bring in some fill into the left side of the property, elevate that so that there'd be a no-step entrance to sort of the back door of the current Center for Active Living, and then a new sort of entrance into the day program. And this corridor and vestibule would sort of be the welcome area for both sides of the building. Above the medical storage room, where the deck and stair is today, we propose an expansion of the kitchen. With the senior day program here and larger meeting spaces in the building, staff talked about having the ability to do meals for bigger groups of 40, 45 people. So the kitchen is a little tight for that. So we'd like to perhaps expand the kitchen into the space so that we could have larger refrigeration, a little bit more counter space for prepping meals for 40 to 50 people at a time. A new enclosed stairwell. This would stretch from the basement all the way up to the second floor. And then this blue area is dedicated to the senior day program. This was envisioned to be a 1-story addition above the basement below. And it would have the senior day program, director's office, a respite room, corridor, accessible restrooms that are dedicated to this space, and some custodial space. This is the second floor, and again, our addition would include enclosed stairwell corridor on that level as well, and a new office space would be sort of a bonus above the kitchen space. So these 8 slides kind of talk about what could be done. We've been working with some local contractors, database of kind of current potential building costs that we've been studying, going back and forth a couple times with Terry, looking at some other projects in town. And this first page is the summary to about 8 other pages of calculations. But if I could just sort of zoom into oops, there we go. in this orange highlighted block is sort of the base cost that I mentioned. These are the things that we think ought to be done to the building as soon as it's possible. The structural repairs to the foundation, HVAC upgrades throughout the building, an updating of the elevator, which is still working today, but it will come to the end of its useful life. Somewhere in the next 5 to 10 years, this elevator and its guts, its machinery, will be due to be replaced. So we came up with a construction cost of $530,000 for that bunch of work. Again, this doesn't stretch the building. It doesn't sort of add anything. To this, we've added a whole bunch of modifiers that's sort of a contingency for design and construction. Contract modifiers are, I should have started that. Our construction cost is sort of raw construction cost. The contract modifiers is the general contractor's overhead and profit, insurance and bond, permit fees, et cetera. All those probably be waived. So then we looked at soft costs, which might include design, procurement, and then the during and post-construction costs are sort of construction administration fees. Perhaps this is combined with a larger project, it might have to have an OPM. Then there's our total of our soft costs. And soft cost total, then we added another 10% contingency just because we're at the very, very early stage conceptual level. Although we have a construction contingency and a design contingency, we wanted to make sure that this was, a conservative estimate. And also these construction costs that we were examined are costs from the last 2 to 3 months. And we know that construction costs don't go down very often. So this also provides some escalation if this were to be procured, 6 months or a year from now. Moving down the page, this green block kind of considers the first 3 slides I showed you of targeted renovations in the addition of some dormers on the second floor, but not the addition of the senior day program, or the entrance lobby, or the renovations of the office. So the construction costs there were $1,234,000. Again, we have the same scenario of project modifiers and contingencies. So that added $2.106 million. It's about $447 a foot. And the square foot there is the square foot of the spaces that we're working in, not the total building. I should have mentioned that the existing building is about 8,660 square feet. You see that in the second to bottom row in the orange block. Moving down the page, the blue block here, this is 1A plus 1B. This is looking at the scenario of doing that 1A work plus the addition of the new front entrance and the renovation of the admin office area. So this project jumps from 2.1 million to just over 3.3 million. Again, we're looking at more square footage at 7594. The cost per square foot has come down. This yellow block at the bottom of the page considers 1A, 1B, and 2, plus, of course, those base building. So this is sort of the all-in number. Preliminary construction cost at just over 4 million, construction contingency, construction modifiers take us to a little over 5.1. Soft cost, which is design, engineering. I should have mentioned before that this includes the parking lot on the right side of the building, and redesigning that, regrading, paving. We don't think we're going to have to move any electrical or gas services, but we would add site lighting in that parking lot and some new sidewalks to get to the building. So there's a fair amount of in this option 2 that adds to the project. And the complexity of the design. And of course, you would have the OPM and other kind of soft costs as well. Again, we added a 10% contingency to this, and this pushed the all-in number to just over 6.5 million. And again, this is 13,380 square feet. At this point, we'd be touching just about everything in the building. Now, we'd be doing that in a phased manner. We understand that the Council on Aging has to be here and kind of be open and active while this is going on. So what we were thinking is that 1A, 1B, those things are things that could be phased. They don't all have to be done at once. In fact, the 1A work, we could build the dormer in the large meeting room on the left side of the building. 6 months later, we could tear into the right side of the building and add the dormer in the community room, and then now the second smaller meeting room. So that work doesn't have to happen simultaneously. It also, the building can be open on the first floor below. There might be some days when the nail banging and the noise is a little too much, but we can also schedule the construction activities to sort of perhaps be off hours and not disruptive to activities that are planned in the building. Just a moment, going to touch on the site plan. So this is the site plan of the existing building here in the center, in the sort of gray highlighted. This is the area right now, which is this new parking area that we showed. Is now lawn. It's used for parking anyway, but it considers kind of improving the drive to the condominium association at the rear of the property, and then building some new dedicated parking, on town property dedicated to the CFLAL. This green block was the shape of the slightly larger addition that my firm designed, over a decade ago. We don't think that the building has to go sort of this far to the south. What we'd like to do is sort of build it a little bit more rectangular shape, so that it's sort of in that area. And of course, enclose this stair as well. So it's a little bit tighter. It's not quite as large. And why? Because we think it's the right size, and it just, the price per square foot of construction now is just tremendous. So anyway, that's the site. We can come back to that if you have questions about the site plan. And then finally, this is a rendering that somebody in my office did just to kind of show you what this is a new dormer, and this is new dormer space here. But modest construction projects, but would make a tremendous difference in the way the building's used, and just a small, quick computer rendering of what it looks like over an existing photograph. But with that, I'll stop talking and take any questions.
All right, first of all, thank you very much for that presentation, very much appreciated. I'm going to open it up to questions or comments from the board. Start to my left with our board. Dean, you're the liaison, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Kurt. I'm not going to be very long because I did have the opportunity to witness a preliminary presentation of this last week. I just wanted to say up front, I'm pleased with the report. I'm pleased with the selection of the firm that did it, and I'm pleased with the presentation tonight. I'll just say very briefly, this goes beyond what I originally had in mind when I offered the motion to have an engineering study. I was sort of thinking we were going to get a report that consisted of repairing and replacing things. And you've essentially re-engineered the interior of the building to make it more serviceable and more useful. And I think that's a very intriguing concept. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm very anxious to hear what my colleagues on both boards have to say and what the public has to say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Shreen?
Thank you for the presentation. It's very interesting. I have some questions. You had mentioned that there was a way to build the project as a phased approach. But wouldn't that be a cost increase to the whole project if it's over time, based on the idea that construction costs are always increasing?
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons we added that other 10% contingency. We just
Okay.
didn't know how long this might stretch out. Certainly, the best construction number would be if you vacated the building and you kind of went after it and did it as fast as you could. If we were to do sort of the 1A in small steps and the building could still be occupied when you came around a year or 2 years later and did 1B. And you may say, hey, we can do that, and then the building would be really more serviceable, and we could defer too. You may say, hey, we need the parking now. Could we take the parking from option 2, put it in with 1A? So we can re-engineer the budgets and kind of stack things together as the town may decide is important. But to answer your question, every time you sort of bid a project again and you rebond it again, and most importantly, the project like this would require full-time superintendent on-site supervision of the work. That's costly. It's just the personnel, and the longer the contract is, the more it will cost.
So thank you. The other question I had, or the couple, is again in the idea of phased approach or not phased approach. We don't have any it wasn't up to you to do this, but I mean I don't see any reflection of what the displacement costs would be to move the program someplace else for a period of time, and I think that should be reflected somewhere. The off hours, could you describe to me, you mentioned also off hours as an approach to building. Wouldn't that be a labor cost that would be higher, or?
Yeah, I think but I was kind of thinking if we could concentrate the activities into 2 or 3 days a week and give the contractors maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday to really do the large, heavy, noisy work, especially if it were sort of in the building. If we were doing that work where we're removing columns, adding new beams, we would have to limit occupancy above that, right? So that would be something where the building could be open, but certain rooms might be closed because there's temporary shoring holding up the floor above. So that we'd like to do. It'd be great if we could do that on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday on a holiday weekend. So that's what it's just trying to strategically decide when is the best time to do that work, and also work with staff to sort of perhaps relocate some programs or stagger them every 2 weeks or something, so that we have a little bit more opportunity for the contractor to get a lot of work done.
Thank you for now.
Thank you, Corey. Kurt, nice to see you again. Thank you for the presentation. I like the fact of the options. Of course, I kind of lean towards the full Monty right out of the gate if we were to do this. I am concerned about phasing, as has been noted by both my predecessor select board members. I'm going to ask you a question, and I guess I am going to put you on the spot a little bit, but as an investor, are we throwing good money after bad, number one? And are the bones of this building, do the bones of this building warrant its improvement?
I think so. We just had a meeting the other day, unrelated project with a contractor, and we said to him, should we take the building down and just build a bigger building? And for the first time in a long time, he said no. He said, I think you've got a lot of money saved in the building that you have in the bones. This building, although it's got lots of columns in the way, and we want to sort of take those away, it's still a sturdy building, save for the one corner that's got some settlement, but we've got a plan for that. I think there's a fire sprinkler system. There's a sewer connection. It already has a 400 amp electric service. It already has a generator. So there's a lot of infrastructure already there that makes sense to sort of build around. I think The addition space is better space than the existing basement, or could be,
Right.
because it's below grade. We have small windows. We could add bigger windows to the basement. That's not considered here, but that's not a deal breaker. But the ceiling is only 7'8" or 7'9". The beams come down to 7 feet, and we can't go lower than that. So if we take out a steel beam at 7 feet, we've still got to get a bigger, better beam that's still the same depth to make that work. So I think building new spaces in the end might be perceived as better space than the renovation of the basement, but I hope that answers your question.
It does, and you've addressed, at least out of the gate for me, the columns in the basement are just a deal breaker. I can't stand them. I think they're totally dysfunctional. They get in the way of any kind of physical and/or sight lines that you want to do there, any kind of physical exercise you want to do there, or entertaining you want to do there, dining, et cetera. And then the conference room and the library on the second floor, library in quotation marks, big time. It's a rabbit warren of confusion when I go up there. And doing the dormers makes sense, and at least you can be fully functional in that conference room where the board meets, et cetera, and where they have meeting space. Then the library needs to be, rationalized. Again, library in quotation marks. I'm not disparaging it. It's just, if they're going to have a library, kind of let's have one, or a computer room, if you will. Let's have usable space.
Current libraries are more than just books and periodicals, right? There's terminals with computers and sort of other collaborative space.
Yeah, I want to hear from everybody. I want to hear from the board and the public as well. But those are my initial reactions. I think you've addressed some of the real dysfunctions that have been in that building for a long time and continue to exist. Just a question of our proclivity to invest in this facility going forward. So thanks. And I was somewhat heartened by your square foot costs. Anyway, thanks.
Mike?
Yeah, let me address that point right out of the gate. I think the question with respect to square foot costs, even if you buy the number that your numerator is, the denominator is sort of, are we adding 5,000 square feet, or are we building a whole new building of 13,000 square feet? I think I would not suggest that we get carried away with the square foot cost, and you can comment on that if you like. First, thanks for the presentation. I think you've done a really good job of taking a building that, I would have said, and probably might still say, has seen its day, and you've created a lot of good space. You've improved the space considerably, and I like that. My concern is, first of all, with all due respect, I think the numbers, one has to be a little bit of a doubting Thomas with respect to the numbers, not because I have any concern about what you're saying,
Right.
but it's just the nature of the beast. And particularly I guess one question I would ask you is, assuming we did option 2, what do you think the useful life of this building is? How long does this building realistically last, considering that in a perfect world, it's going to get increased use, increased, punishment, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, I guess the square foot cost, we've seen new projects ground up, raw land, be anywhere from 600. We just priced one the other day, came in at 800. But it was a very complex commercial building with a lot of plumbing and mechanical issues. I think the per square foot numbers we put in there, because everybody always asks.
Don't get caught up in the square foot.
What's this? We just wanted to it's a gauge for us to kind of understand sort of what we're drawing, what we're designing, and then just kind of gauge it against other projects. The building, with the addition and some renovations, because you can't, I would say you want to just do the addition and not touch the old building. We've already got $530,000 of work we know we want to do, should be done in the building. The bones are good. The spaces aren't grand, but with the new heating system, which is part of that initial base building improvements, the elevator improvement could make this building last another 30 years.
Okay. What is the number, or I take it the base cost at the top
Yeah.
of your chart, we need to do that no matter what, if we're going to continue to use the building. Is that a fair conclusion here?
Yeah, because that's got those structural improvements, the HVAC improvements, the elevator improvements, and then just ADA improvements, because the town did commission a study a couple of
Right,
years ago
right.
that identifies.
And is there a duplication with respect to the HVAC, the stuff that Terry's working on with the state? If we come back and do option 2, is that?
Option 2 includes new HVAC work in the addition only. The rest of the
Okay.
base building includes the HVAC work for the
Okay.
replacement of the 5 existing air furnaces.
So
Gas furnace.
assuming we're going to touch this building, how much of this, what you have up there, do we have to spend in order for this, or how far down the chart do we have to get in order for this building to be completely current code compliant?
Well, the base costs are gonna sort of update your elevator, and it also includes 70,000 in sort of miscellaneous hardware and other accessibility issues. The renovation of Scheme 1A included restrooms at the lower level. And option 2 included sort of the new walkways and ramps and parking. So it's a little bit, if we did 1A,
Yeah,
you can still get in the building, it's still compliant.
well,
So-
no, but the way I'm asking the question, in other words, do we have to spend what I would add the base and 1A
Yeah.
to $3 million? So we need to spend $3 million for this thing to be code compliant?
I think there's things in that 3 million which are not code issues, they're just improvements. If that makes sense. They're nice to have, but they're not required. There's a lot of things in there that are just nice to
So
have.
they're under the heading of while I'm at it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll stop there. I have a bunch of questions, but I'll stop there and pass it on.
Well, first of all, thank you for the various options. I think that is helpful as far as a healthy discussion. This has been a long topic. I mean, we've discussed this for, some time. But to the point I think everyone's making, there's still a lot of early phases because with this à la carte types, option, which is wonderful, I think, there's a lot of, numbers that may increase. They're unlikely going to decrease, but they're going to increase. We got to factor in where our priority is. If we wanted to take something from column A and column B to kind of combine it together, and what is our vision of this particular facility. Phasing it, the pros and cons. You could use the building to some level with minimal interruptions, more on certain days. But as mentioned earlier, if we close the building down for a lengthier period of time, you got the extra cost of displacing it, relocating, all those elements that we've discussed in prior projects. So there's still some numbers floating out there that we don't have a hard, core on yet, which we will get to. This is kind of a step back type of view on the numbers. It gives us options. It gives us options on a site that I know probably one of my colleagues said we should have done this, X amount of years ago. We don't know. We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. We've had a long discussion, multiple sites, multiple concepts, multiple feelings, multiple votes, and this gives us something that we can, frankly, I think we can honestly take a good, solid look at and think of: is this something that we could kind of move forward, in a relatively within this year? Within this year, could we have a really good, solid idea of where we're heading with this? So, because people keep asking, after the last town meeting, like, where do you go? This gives us a legitimate option to consider. This is where we may want to go as a community. And to giving us the options, I appreciate. And I understand what you're saying also, too. that there's certain things that are code required, but there's kind of the extra bonuses, as Mike was said, while we're at it. We're getting in here, we got the crew, we got the walls opened up or whatever, you might as well do it now, but if you go back and do it later, it's gonna cost more in the long run. So it's kind of forward thinking of how you tackle these projects, so I do appreciate that. So, I think this is a path that I don't know exactly where we're gonna end up landing on this, but I think it's definitely worth, some very strong consideration, some further discussions. And I would appreciate, the Council on Aging Board of Directors to weigh in on it. And I'm also going to appreciate any comments the public may want to add on this. So at the moment now, I'm going to pass over to Pat. Pat, let you take over your board.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you, Kurt. I as well had heard the presentation before and was very surprised we could get such a nice redesign. I have a couple of design questions, just because I was thinking of them while you were doing it. In the new big multi-purpose rooms, where the one I'm on, 1B in the dining area, what happens is we move a lot of tables around and chairs, and I don't see any storage for those. Like, where are we going to put them if we just need chairs and we don't need tables? And I know from visiting other councils on aging, storage is a huge issue. And, Anna's pushing them around and flipping them all over the place. And it would be nice if we could say, okay, we're gonna spend some money, but we need a place to put those.
Right, that would be a really nice thing to have sort of on this main level as a
Yeah.
storage room. So you don't have to take things down the stairs or in the
Right.
elevator. Understood.
Thank you. And my other question had to do with, I read all this late this afternoon. And so I have a question on the total. Is the total of sans the base cost, 1A, 1B, and 2, about 6.5 million? Would that be correct?
So the 6.5 is sort of all in, it's the base
Okay.
cost.
And then what would the total of 1A and 1B be 3.3 million, or is that right?
Yeah, so this is sort of cumulative.
Yeah.
So each time you go down, we've left the blocks above. So it's got the base building, the second block is the 1A, and then the 1B is 1A, 1B, and the base,
Okay.
so improvements.
And then the bottom includes supportive adult day. But in the original plan, were we to go with 1A and 1B, we would be able to do supportive adult day health within the lower level.
Within the lower
The
level.
way you had
Right.
designed it. Okay.
And we
just want-
assumed that lower space would be, I think, 2 days a week for supportive day.
Yeah.
And then the other 3 days a week or 4 days a week, it could be used for any type of program.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would give us a lot of space, it really would. And just one comment for Jeff. People use that library every day. So I just wanted to let you know that, because we have a librarian from the Friends who goes in there and gets books for us and gets discounts and does all these wonderful things, and all the books are all, bestsellers. So I don't want people to think, the books are from 1922.
I certainly didn't mean to insinuate that. I just know that it feels like you're in a little rabbit warren when you're up there.
It does, and we have some furniture that we could, I don't think we could get rid of if we wanted to. Thank you, I may have more, but I'm going to pass to Laura.
Well, I'm excited to see that we're able to have some feasibility with the building. I'm new to all this and the long history here, so this feels great that there's something we can move forward with and maybe still, kind of have some compromise with people, who don't really want to spend a lot of money into the building. So, thank you. Basically, that's what I have to say.
Joan?
Thank you very much. I think we've got to start doing something. Every day it costs us more money, and we've got to decide on something, and I think this would certainly appeal to the town. This has to go before town meeting, right?
Oh, yes, it would.
Okay. Still got to have 2/3 of vote on that, too. Yes. Okay. Anyway, I think when we can combine these, but using the building, is that going to be a higher cost because they're working on Saturday? I mean, do they get overtime or whatever? So the cost of using the building, but still building, or improving the building, is that going to up the cost because it's not being done on a, say, 9 to 5 or whatever basis?
Yeah, it certainly could. And we've done sort of live renovations. We've done them in banks, where the bank is open for business. The drive-through is open, the lobby's open, but we're kind of in like one third, and then literally over that holiday weekend, you pull out all the furniture and you bring in the new. So it's a lot of logistics of could we compress the programming into 3 days, Monday through Wednesday, and give the contractor Thursday, Friday, Saturday to really tear into the building and make noise and do power disconnections and other things. So it would be a cooperative effort rather than moving out. And I think it costs a little bit more, but perhaps it saves the relocation fee costs.
Thank you.
Betty?
I think my question's been answered already. Thank you.
Okay. I know Nancy Fields had her hand up. Kathy?
Yes, Nancy has her hand up.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Pat. Hi, everyone. I add my thanks for the presentation. I think it's excellent. Unfortunately, I did not get a copy of the costs, so I have not been able to look at that, so I might have more questions on that later. But my specific question for now, I have a lot of questions, comments, and input on the specific plans, but I don't think this is the space to do that, to raise those issues. But one I did want to raise is on option 2, page 6, the plan on page 6, where you don't show removing the columns in the basement that you did show on the earlier options. So I'm just wondering if you would contemplate removing the columns in option 2, or if option 2 is really additive to the other 2 options, so the fact that it was already addressed in one of the earlier options means by default it's addressed here.
That's correct. We decided that if we built the new restrooms and the new exercise room in this addition wing, we might not do that structural work in the basement. So our option two did kind of avoid some of the dirty work in the basement.
Okay, I would urge that we rethink that, because those spaces are nearly unusable as they are configured today. So having those 2 significant spaces added to our programming options would be huge. So I feel like that's, even if nothing else were done in the whole building, I think that at least should be done to increase our usable space.
Great. Well, actually, Stan Mansfield is also online. Stan, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I do. A key item that we've always lacked, and of course all of us have been to other senior centers, is a multi-purpose room, which is exactly what it says. It's not an exercise room alone. It's not a dining room alone. It's an all-purpose room. And I was just wondering, you have 3 potential multi-purpose rooms that you've shown, and I'm just wondering what the dimensions of those are.
So why don't I go back to,
That's
Yeah.
very important.
yeah, so these two rooms are almost identical in size in the lower level. And inside the foundation, they're about 24 feet by 24 feet each, or 450 square feet.
Okay,
Up on the main level, it's the identical sized room. Again, well, this is like 24 and a half by 24 and a half because the walls are a little thinner. And then on the upper level, again, that would be the same size. So they're all about 24 or 25 feet in both dimensions. In our 1B, we considered stretching the first floor sort of dining room by 10 feet. So that would be, 35 by 25.
okay, but the total would be, in any case, the total would be close to how much?
All the rooms together?
No, the total of each potential multipurpose room.
There would be three at 24 by 24 feet. And then in the option 1B addition, the main first floor multipurpose room would stretch and become 35 by 25.
Okay, because you were talking about an exercise room available.
Oh, sorry.
In sort of the multi-purpose room downstairs. Now, the problem is that and I've never seen a senior center where the meals are served on a different floor than the kitchen. So that would, in other words, that could be an exercise room, but it wouldn't serve as a multi-purpose room. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
Okay, well, if you total up the size, the maximum size, it just isn't anywhere near big enough for a quote multi-purpose room. Having looked at maybe 5 or 6 different senior centers, it would be just be totally inadequate. And since that's probably the key item we're looking at here that we've always lacked, I just wonder if there's any way to make it larger. It's like about a third of the size of the smallest one we've seen.
I understand what you're asking, and there certainly is a way to take that first floor room and make it larger. Wasn't considered in this conceptual design or these preliminary budgets, but it could be. We could look at a bigger room on the first floor, and perhaps that means going out to the south or the left, and that would sort of further displace the addition. But very, very feasible.
Okay. The other question is about parking. It sounds like you're going to be able to expand the parking space. What would be the maximum number of vehicles that it could hold? In other words, you were using town property as well as the current space. That's also a key issue. It is a very important issue.
Right, so do you know exactly how many spaces you have now?
I think it's well, again, it's not what formal versus non-formal, but I think the net on that was 34 spaces, 34.
So our plan from, a decade ago considered a plan with 35 spaces dedicated, right in that table, to the C.O.A. It's a little bit of a hybrid because some of the spaces in that parking lot actually are deeded to the association next door. But we could definitely get 35, and I think there's less than 20 now.
I think it's 19 marked, I think.
19 today, 35 tomorrow.
Okay.
Marked spaces.
Again, just speaking to everybody, that's a key issue. And we were told that even at 1610, with room for, I don't know how many it was it 65? That
57.
57 could be inadequate under certain circumstances. It's just another issue that if we were going to spend all this money, we'd certainly like to accommodate a good number of vehicles that were absolutely needed. It doesn't sound like it's really possible.
It would be hard here.
Hold on, Jeff, I had a follow-up question in a sec. I think for the parking, I think we are limited. I think that's a very safe position to take, that we have some limitation on parking.
Sure, okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Jeff, you had a follow-up question?
I just wanted to reaffirm Nancy Field's comment about the columns in the basement on plan, option 2. They really got to come down. The beams got to go in there and make that space usable as functional space. It's just not wasted space, but it's just dysfunctional space at present. So I would suggest that those lolly columns are going to come down and the steel beams got to go in. Thanks.
Pat?
One question, Kurt. When you're talking about parking spaces, you're talking about all the parking spaces if I'm looking at the front of the building to the right. Would we lose the parking spaces that we have on the left that not many people park there, but we have some?
The addition would displace those.
But if we didn't have the addition?
Well, in this design that we came up with, we totally reconfigured the driveway. And we
Okay.
put some new spaces in the front yard facing back towards the street so that there was a drop-off loop.
Okay.
That's still feasible. And there's sort of 4 on the property line and 6 or 7 along the street.
Okay, thank you.
Follow, Mike?
Yeah, I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I appreciate the let's say, the optimistic view that we can stage this with people, workers working 3 days a week and people taking advantage of the center 4 days a week or whatever plan. My own view here, and it's purely my own personal view, is that when you actually try to put that into place, you've got people totally dissatisfied with their space when they're using it, and I'm talking about construction workers when they're constructing, and senior center constituents when they're programming. And what's worse, that contemplates not only a cleanup every day, but a sort of put it back in usable condition every night. To me, the cost and inefficiency of that just makes it frankly, again, in my humble opinion, a pipe dream to do it that way. I think if you're going to think about this, and you can have whatever opinion you want to have about it, but if you're going to think about this, you ought to think about it in terms of doing the whole project as quickly as you can. Get your bids, get your contracts, and do the job, and be done with it. And I don't want to imply a point of view on that at this point, because my second point is, somebody said, I think Pat said she read the numbers this afternoon. The board, at least I didn't see the numbers until this afternoon. The idea that we are in a position that we can make a decision about what to do here, even as a board, seems to me to be, a little bit premature.
All right. Before I go to the public, I did want to make just a follow-up question or comment on that. Basically, there's no debate that the longer we wait, costs can go up higher. We understand that. But I think, at least from the conversations we've had so far, there's an understanding that there's some general support for moving this discussion forward. Still a lot of details to work out. Exactly what direction we want to go in and et cetera. So the reality of it is we're closing the warrant theoretically tomorrow. And that's why I have a placeholder on our agenda tomorrow. If this was something that we wanted to kind of queue up for the May town meeting of this year, which I think is a little bit very aggressive and I think is very premature. I could be in the minority there, but this is my general thought. So I think this is something that, if there's enough support for it, whichever version, 1A, 1B, option 2, whatever, we take some more time to spend some time hashing out all these details we want to do. And, whether it be a special town meeting in the fall, next year's town meeting, I don't know. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I don't think it's ready for May of 2024. That is my thoughts. So I would appreciate any comments from the public who would like to. Yes, please.
Just some clarification on the HVAC system. It would be totally renovated in the base costs, right?
Yes.
But you said if in option 2, it'd only be a portion of it?
So we calculated a separate construction budget for each, like 1A, 1B, and 2. And 2 only considered HVAC in the new square footage, not in anything in the old building. That was considered in the base cost.
Oh, so it was inclusive?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was sort of 2 different numbers.
Right.
But not duplicated.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Reaction, Pat?
Just 2 things, Kurt. If we were to do the whole project at once, what would the timeline on that be? I'm not saying let's start tomorrow, but, 18 months, 12 months?
With the addition, the option 2 addition as well.
Yeah, let's say we did the whole
I
thing.
think if the building was vacated, I think you could do it in, 10 seems a little short, but definitely 12 months.
Okay. And I would have to agree with Corey that I believe that bringing this to town meeting would be a bit premature at this point. I think we need to have more discussion about it and really listen to what people have to say. That's it. I'm done.
Mr. Chair, it's Jill. Nancy Fields has her hand up.
Nancy, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to second what Mike said about getting the construction done, moving everyone out, and getting it done as fast as possible. I'm thinking logistically from particularly Anna's perspective, where when you don't plan these programs at the last minute, you need more than a couple of weeks to contract with speakers and figure out where space is going to be and all of that kind of stuff. So I think to expect that on a day-to-day, even a week-to-week, even a month-to-month basis, that Anna would be able to shift programs around is just putting more of a burden on staff than I think is fair to ask of them. I totally agree with Mike that if we're going to do this, let's move everyone out, find some other space, and let them do their jobs while this is going on. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, now I'm going to go to the public. I'm going to start with the in-house audience. Is there anyone in the house tonight would like to make a comment, question? Somebody, come on. Mr. David Mott.
Hi, Dave Mott. I'm from Chatham. First of all, thank you, Catalyst. I think it was about 12 months ago, I stood in this room and said, what we really need to do to solve this problem or solve this issue, it would be to look at it with some fresh eyes and some creativity. And I think that's exactly what you've done, and I applaud you for that. I agree with some of the speakers that have said, if you're going to do this, just go after it, get it done. I've been through progress construction in my corporate life where we've moved from floor to floor and moved things around while construction was being done. It is more of a hassle than one might imagine, and your inclination to say that it probably ends up being more expensive is probably true. So if you're going to do it, I think at this juncture, we shouldn't get mired in the details of what's going to get moved where and how, but is this a concept that we can live with? Is this an idea that can get pushed forward? As you know, I was a bit of a vocal opponent for the last go-around, but I could see myself supporting this in great detail because I think it does make use of assets that we already have, reusing those assets and adding to them. And I applaud the effort.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience in-house tonight? Questions? Leah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening. Leah Lacrosse, Director of Community Services. I just want to say thank you to Kurt, first of all, because we spent some time together going through this, and he really captured everything that we said we needed in order to make the space more usable. In fact, like Mr. Mott said, the creativity he showed, he really captured everything that we said that we needed. And speaking for my staff, I would say that we are, if it saves the town money, we are willing to either move or stay put and do phases, whatever works out best. What's important to us is that we finally have a building that will really fit our needs. And I think in these plans that we really do. So, speaking for the people who use this space every single day, I could tell you that this plan with everything he put in there really captures everything that we needed. And I would appreciate consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And once again, anyone in-house with a question or comment? All right, anyone online have a question or comment?
No hands yet.
All right, well, I'll circle back to the board. Dean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate everybody's input tonight. I look upon this entire project as trying to achieve what is politically possible. We know it's not politically possible. We've seen that in several town meetings. And I think it's incumbent upon the board, the select board, to move a project forward. We're not ready to advance this project. It needs more examination, and it should not, as you suggest, Mr. Chairman, go to this upcoming annual town meeting. I think what should happen is after town meeting, as we begin the new fiscal year, for the select board to take this up again, for the Council on Aging to take it up again independently, and perhaps in the meantime, depending upon what funds are available in the town manager's consulting budget, Kurt could make some redesign changes based on the comments this evening and the concerns that have been expressed. But I do think that this concept merits serious consideration by the town. We have an obligation to provide a facility that is hospitable and usable by the seniors of Chatham. We've talked about, and I fully agree, that trying to accommodate construction work while programming is taking place is probably an impossible practicality. I remember when the idea of knocking this building down and putting up a new one several years ago at the cost of $6 million or so was suggested by this selectman, that's what I was called back then. Many folks said, well, you're going to displace all these programs. The Council on Aging programs will die in the interim. Well, that was proven wrong by COVID, when the Council on Aging building was effectively shut down for 2 years, and we still ran a Council on Aging. So it is possible, I think, to find venues for some of the programs, albeit on a limited basis, while construction takes place. As far as the parking is concerned, that's a problem. And it's a problem that's not solvable on this premises. We just have to accept that. What's the solution for that? Shuttles. Parking at the DPW lot or on other town lots and shuttling people for those larger events. Is this perfect? Is it ideal? No. Is it politically practical? I think it makes a lot more practical sense than trying to envision a much larger building, a considerably larger cost, on some as yet undefined, unfound location in town. So my hope is that we will not do anything tomorrow night, that agenda item will be removed, and that we will revisit this as a town, as a community, as more people in town have the opportunity to weigh in on it over the coming months, and take a look at it seriously after town meeting. And maybe we decide not to do anything. Maybe we decide that options 1A and 1B are what makes sense at the present time and not option B, option 2. But I think we should take a serious look at it. And I think we've had, I think a lot of good questions were asked tonight and a lot of good concerns were expressed this evening. So I'm pleased with the result. And I thank the town manager and her staff for making this possible. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from panel here? All right, I think this was a very healthy discussion. I very much appreciate the presentation. It is a healthy set of eyes that was placed on it. I think you've added a new layer to the conversation that was kind of, I think people were looking for, and I do appreciate all the effort you've put into this so far. So stick with us, please.
Thank you.
I want to thank the audience that was signed on, or at least were signed on, and everyone who showed up tonight. So with all that being said, I'll turn it over to Pat to adjourn her committee.
Motion to adjourn? Second?
I move and I second it.
Thank you. Betty? Yes. Joan?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
And the chair says yes.
Stan?
Yes.
Oh, Stan, I forgot you, I'm sorry.
And a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Second? All right, so all those in favor, Select Board Member DeCastro?
Aye.
Select Board Member Davis?
Aye.
Select Board Member Dykens?
Aye.
Select Board Member Shell?
Aye.
And Select Board Member Metter says aye. So good night, everyone. Thank you very much.